Hi there, my name is Tomáš Farkas. I'm a teacher at the University of Cyril and Methodius in Trnava. I am also a sound designer. I've been doing sound design for my whole life. And an important thing to mention here is that I'm also a father. So this topic, the inclusive and accessible design for educational games, is kind of important for me because my daughter, she actually played a lot of games of this kind, and I've been actually thinking about this topic a lot of times, not just as an academic, but also as a parent. So sometimes I am probably going to make examples that are not like purely theoretical or academical, but sometimes I'm going to talk as a parent. So welcome to this presentation. I'm not sure whether it's going to be long or short, but I hope it's going to be useful for you. From my point of view, this topic is very, very important in creating not just educational games, but also games in general, because we live in a world where many of these themes are kind of in the background. Many people are not really considering them, and to my happiness, yeah, to my to my positive uh, feelings about this topic, recently, in recent years, I noticed that many AAA studios are actually trying to make their games more inclusive and accessible for many players. I should also mention that as a sound designer, I've been focusing on audio games for visually impaired. So again, this theme is really, really close to me. So what I will try to do here in this presentation is to give you an overview of what could you consider when doing or making an educational game. Some of these things are going to be more like definitions, and some of these things are going to be examples. Some of these things are, I, 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 I encourage you to then think about them, not just to listen to my words, but to actually try to Google some stuff, read some stuff, because this theme is obviously much more complex than this presentation. So what are the key definitions to know? What I'm trying to do in this presentation, besides other things, is to actually define what is inclusive design, what is accessible design, because these things are slightly different, and also what is SEN, which means special educational needs. So what is an inclusive design? Some things I'm just going to read, some things I'm going to explain more. Inclusive design is designing a product or service. In our case, it's a digital game or environment, so that it can be used by the widest possible range of people without the need for special adaptation. And of course, respecting diversity. Some of the things I'm going to repeat many times because they are important, and they are kind of important in many other fields of which I'm going to talk about. So diversity is one of these words which is going to be repeated. The users are important in all this process. So the diversity of users is something that should be considered. There are differences in their abilities, language, culture, age, gender, and so on. So as you can see, some of the words are probably words that you've been hearing a lot in the recent years. Some of the words you've been hearing in different contexts, and it's not obviously only about the educational games, but culture, age, gender, and so on. It's a theme that should be considered from many these different perspectives. Each user has different needs. It's obvious in this theme, so it is important to consider various options and flexibility. It is necessary to consider the broader context of who, where, how, and in what situation or product or game will potentially be used. So this is probably one of the most important things for all the people who consider themselves as game developers, because you always have to think about broader context and about who you are actually making the game for, where the game is going to be used, and how. These are really, really important things, not just in educational games, but in general in video games or digital games. There is also a float project. Some things you can find in the presentation itself. If you want more information, I left many, many links in this presentation, so you can click them and read for yourself, because I or we don't really want this presentation to be 2 hours long, right? So this was something about inclusive design, but what is accessible design? The difference is accessible design focuses on specific barriers that could prevent or hinder the use of our product or game. Also, it is important to ensure that all users have access to content, tools, or any other content. Some users may have health disabilities, obviously, developmental disorders, or special educational needs, which we are going to talk about later. Also, the product cannot be labeled as accessible. This is important. It cannot be labeled as accessible unless we know the context, educational goals, or the users themselves. Again, this is something that I'm going to repeat many, many more times in the next few minutes, because as you can see, it's closely tied to this here. Who, where, and how is going to our product to be used. Of course, we have some examples here. Accessible design, it involves around, for example, visual or hearing impairment, which are like one of the more common impairments. Autism spectrum disorders, developmental learning disorders, and so on. So some of these things we are going to discuss later in details, so that you can see how many things there are actually to consider when you are creating an educational digital game. So, what is SEN? SEN means Special Educational Needs. This is actually an official classification of developmental learning disorders. So, I'm pretty sure you already heard about some of these, but I'm also sure that some of them are kind of unknown to you, and maybe you should probably learn about them, because, again, making educational games is actually um, not just creating the game and mechanics and stuff like that, but also first and foremost thinking about who are you creating the game for. It's not just like, we are going to create some game and some people are going to use it. We actually need to focus on the group of people who is going to use it. So some of these things you probably heard before. Dyslexia is a reading disorder. Dysgraphia is a writing disorder. Dyscalculia, this goes more into the numbers, problems with math, numbers, counting. Dysorthography is spelling disorder. Dyspraxia is problems with manual or motoric tasks. Dysphyxia is impaired artistic abilities. Dysmusia is musical ability disorder. And there is also this huge group which I put under the letters ASD, so that means autism spectrum disorder, and this can affect social and communication skills and impacts behavior. So we have all kinds of ADHD, AS, ADD stuff there, and obviously this is the group that could, we could make a whole another presentation just about this, because there is a lot of things to consider, but of course we don't have so much time. So I will just kind of focus on some of these. As you can see, when you think about these, let's just call it disorders, right? These all refer to some kind of an activity that is problematic. Like some people have problems with counting, right? So when you are creating a game that's or educational game which is focused on mathematics, it is obviously something that you should probably discuss, because you are not just creating a game, you are creating a product which should be used in a specific place by a specific people. So you should probably go into the research phase, maybe in the first place, and kind of find out what kind of kids or students are going to use your game and in what context. Because when you create a digital game that focuses on numbers and counting and stuff like that, obviously people with dyscalculia are not going to be able to use it because they have problems with this. So this is something to be considered, right? When the focus of your game uses the mechanics of writing, like you expect people or students or children to write something, it is actually important to know about dysgraphia, right? What kind of students are going to use this app, this game? Of course, dyslexia, it's reading disorder. So maybe you should consider whether your game needs a text at all, right? Because educational games can tackle many themes, and some of these themes can be expressed without actual words or letters. So these things are really just examples of how complex this theme can be. Spelling disorder, right? This is connected to dyslexia, but maybe, yeah, right. Dysmusia. For me as a sound designer, this is especially important, because if I was going to create an educational game, which would be, of course, focused on some kind of like tones or chords or musical puzzles or whatever, I would have to research dysmusia and how many students or kids actually have this disorder, and how to work with it, right? How to work around or how to work with the disorder. And also with autism spectrum disorder, there is a lot of stuff to delve into. But again, this would probably affect anything about your educational game that would actually expect students or kids to talk, right, to present something, which is part of this presentation later. So any game, any educational game where you expect students or children to express something, to communicate, to talk about, which is probably one of the key aspects that should be considered when creating an educational game, you have to actually think about how many people have some kind of autism spectrum disorder, because there is many more people with these disorders that you would expect, and they are just not visible enough, because these things mm, you probably know that these disorders haven't been researched enough in the past. So this kind of people with ADHD, ADD, and stuff like that, they are kind of resurfacing only in the recent years. So this is something that should be considered definitely. Of course, I encourage you to discuss examples and potential solutions, because this is a theme for itself. Like you could just we could spend several hours just talking about these disorders and how to actually incorporate mechanics in games to help students with these disorders to actually be able to use our potential educational games, right? Also, there are many themes to discuss around these topics, like use of text-to-speech technologies, voice commands. Voice commands, obviously, this would be important for people with dyspraxia, because they have obviously problems with motoric skills, and they are not able to use their hands properly and stuff like that. We could talk about adaptive controllers, about contrasting colors for people that are visually impaired, about haptic feedback, which is extremely important, and utilization of AI technologies, which is, again, a topic for itself. So let's go on. What is EmoGBL? It's integrative model of emotion in game based learning. So this model, it's again one of the definitions I want to talk about a little bit about. So this model, it describes common mechanisms of how emotion and learning processes interact to foster specific learning outcomes. It considers how color, shape, expression, and dimensionality of game characters induce emotions in digital games. And it kind of talks about relation between emotion and learning, because these things are extremely important. Materials using warm colors and round shapes induced more positive emotions and resulted in greater comprehension of a science topic and greater transfer compared to materials using neutral colors and square shapes. This is actually an example from the research. I put a link here. You can read more about it. This is a whole article. So this model in this slide, uh, if I would have to kind of shorten it and maybe put it in a more simple words, this actually talks or tells us about how emotions are actually extremely important uh, game designers to think about, to consider, and also about colors and shapes, because when we are talking about educational games, we are usually talking about younger children, students that are like maybe around 10 years old and stuff like that. So for this kind of people, shapes, colors, expressions, and dimensions of game characters and stuff, it's really important. And this is again a parent in me talking, because I've been, like, as I said before, I've been playing educational digital games with my daughter for many years when she was really young, and I was actually seeing these things, how she reacted to colors, how she reacted to shapes and stuff like that, how she reacted to whether the game characters were smiling or whether they were neutral and stuff like that. It's really important. I know that for people who don't have children, it is harder to delve deeper into this kind of details. Maybe it's just, for some people this is gonna be like just details, but believe me, as a parent, I've seen this many times. Colors, shapes, expressions, these are really important things when considering the whole design of your educational game, right? So there is also the relation between emotions and learning, because obviously when you are feeling some negative emotions, you're not probably going to learn properly if 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 you are even going to learn anything, right? So it is very important to think about emotional impact of everything that your game is going to have in itself, like all the colors and shape. Obviously some shapes are more like aggressive, right? So maybe if you consider like a square versus something that's round. Obviously, something that's round, it kind of tells us that it's less aggressive, and also the colors. So the colors are also important. Again, it's not something that is like a must-have, but it's something that you should consider when creating games, because your goal, the main goal of creating an educational game, is actually to teach the students or children something. But if you use mechanics, if you use colors and shapes and maybe words, sounds that are aggressive, harsh, or maybe like emotionally um, negatively, I don't know, like negatively affecting the users, the children, the goal of teaching these children is going to be like busted. That's the main message of this. Let's go ahead. Okay, this is another important topic in the creating of not just educational games, but also digital games in general, and its cultural context and language consideration. So there are like I divided this in two levels. First level is pragmatic, of course, and that tells us something now about content localization and multi-language support. So when you are creating an educational game, obviously you don't want to use it only in your country, right? Probably not like 100%, but you are probably aiming to distribute it to other countries as well. So you consider how you implement other languages into this game, and also images and symbols. Don't forget that some images and symbols are different in different countries. For example, if we are creating a game that has its topic around, like, I don't know, driving or cars or something like that, uh, there obviously are differences between signs, for drivers in different countries, right? Or symbols as well. Some countries have these different symbols for things that you consider like completely normal. Some countries have completely different symbols for that. So what what I'm trying to say by this is that localization is not only about translating your game into different language, but also consider all the symbols and images and stuff that could be interpreted differently in different countries, right? Also, incorporating local contexts and examples. Again, this is one of the things I said before that I am going to repeat a lot of times. You have to know your target group, your target audience, because if you use inappropriate examples, inappropriate information, many users can be kind of like, they just stop using your app because you didn't know that you are using something that's actually offensive in their country, right? So these are things to be considered as well. Other considerations, this is not so much pragmatic. Avoid stereotypes at all costs. I know that this is like a controversial theme. We could talk about this for hours, and I know because I saw our students to kind of stop and start asking questions about this theme. But let's just agree on the fact that stereotyping is usually bad. Like, stereotypes are not 100% negative things. Some stereotypes just work. It's not offensive and anything like that. But we all know what kind of stereotypes we are talking about. Racism and stuff like that, gender agenda. We should probably avoid stereotyping everything, because there are many people on this planet right now that are always taking advantages of these things, and they are trying to push something that's mostly negative. So stereotypes are really bad, and if you work with a game or on a game that kind of where there is a potential of stereotyping some or any kind of group of people, whatever that means for you, avoid it, because that just doesn't belong into digital games in general. Okay. Also, if you can, use cultural sensitivity and correct representations, or consider cultural sensitivity and correct representations, because again, as I said before, in these examples, not every country is the same. Some themes, some things, some symbols are much more sensitive in different countries. So you have to consider these things if you don't, want to lose the target on the audience, right? So this themes continues on this slide. You should use simple and inclusive language. This is more, again, on the pragmatic level of things. You should use simple and inclusive language, because it is simply easier to understand for different ages and abilities. You should be respectful and neutral. Also, you should consider gender neutrality, as I said before, which this can mean that you just use neutral characters. You don't, I'm not a big fan of like girls are pink and boys are blue. You just use different colors. You just use different shapes of characters. You don't really have to. You don't really have to use the stereotypes I talked about a minute ago. So also, be or try at least to be supportive of diverse learners, because again, this is me as a parent talking. I know a lot of kids, I know a lot of children that are like really fast and really like quick learners, and some of these kids also I know that are slower, but they are still like extremely intelligent. But everybody has its own pace. The diversity is extremely important, so consider this. Why it is important? Of course, well, this is like the beginning of our presentation. It just creates more space for accessibility in general. Clarity, of course, because you don't want to create a game or app which is not really clear how to use, right? You have to be able to start using it immediately, not just spend 2 hours to just learn about what can you do and how do you do it. Also, it is important in the ways of inclusivity, and also, and this is I can't stress this enough, again, as a parent, not just an academic or teacher, emotional safety. Okay, you have to avoid harsh or confusing language because it helps to create a positive learning environment. As I said before, several slides up, emotions and the setting and environment is extremely important, because when you have children or students that are constantly in stress, they are not going to learn anything. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, so, okay, there are some examples of how you could consider the language or some kind of notes in your game. Like these are extremely general, but I guess you get the idea. Instead of "you failed," you could use "let's try again," because this is really, really, really negative connotation, and this is actually putting the student or child in a position that, okay, yeah, we okay, we all can make mistakes, but let's try again, because this is how learning or teaching works. We always try again until we know it. Inappropriate sentence could be also "you are wrong." Appropriate sentence could be "let's look at that together," right? Because we are talking about children here. So this is something that's like filled with positive energy, positive like message to the user, to the child. So this is much more engaging than this one. Again, an appropriate example: "you didn't do it right." Appropriate, that's okay, let's explore another way. Okay, this is again something that actually agrees that a user or child made a mistake, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is, let's explore another way how to do this or solve this problem. We should always try to use neutral language. Okay, this is, for example, in our country, I kind of stumbled on a problem, because it is actually not easy for us in Slovakia to use neutral language in all cases, because obviously player in English can mean both women and men, right? But we have different words for female and male players in Slovakia. So obviously this is the thing that should be considered in every country from a slightly different perspective, and it is probably a complex theme, the use of language in general. But you get the idea. You should always consider using neutral language, not just not just to I don't know how to say it, not just to address the players, but in general. Also, you should avoid evaluative or rating language. Again, this leads to negative feedback, to negative emotions in children, which also leads to inefficiency in learning. Of course, this can also means demotivation, and this word demotivation is the last thing you want to see when creating an educational game, because you don't teach anybody who is demotivated, because demotivated person, uh, he or she just doesn't want to spend time with the game anymore. Okay. You should also consider supporting choices and autonomy when you put children or users in a place where they don't have to choose or can't choose anything, and they don't have any autonomy on the use of the app or game. Again, it leads to negative emotions, and as I said before, it leads to demotivation and ineffectiveness of our app or game. And also, the last thing on this slide, we should also go for positive formulations, which we kind of practice here on these examples, because it supports learning and growth. And these things should also be in our like main goals, because we don't want to create educational games just for fun. We first and foremost should create these games so that other people could learn something and grow with it. Okay, so there is another slide talking some things about cultural context and language consideration. So these are some other examples that we could consider, right? I put them in questions because this is something that like every game developer should ask themselves before actually trying to create any kind of game, not just educational games. And the examples are, does our game actually need any words? Again, this is something that we could go back for a few slides up, and we would see all the learning disorders and stuff like that. And if any game, if a game is, if we can create a game without words, that may be a challenge. Maybe some teams would be a bigger challenge to do this, but this would actually mean that a lot of learning disorders could be avoided, because also because as I said before, shapes, colors, symbols and stuff like that, it can communicate a lot of information actually. So this should be one of the questions you ask yourself, right? Another one: what kind of another language could we use? Again, it's interconnected, right? What kind of language? And when I say language, I don't mean like what kind of what language of a country, but what kind of language, like what kind of symbols, what kind of sounds, what kind of like shapes could we use to make the game playable and usable. But again, we could do this completely without words. Shapes, colors, sounds, all the kind of visual stuff we could create is still or could be on the same level as actual words. Don't forget this. What colors are we going to use and why? Again, this is a question that everybody should ask before creating an educational game, because colors are extremely important. And if you are going to create a game that's like supposed to be played by, like, I don't know, maybe 8-year-old children, you are probably not going to use some cold and bleak and gloomy environments and colors and visuals, because this is probably going to cause negative emotions in this game, in these kids. And as you remember already, this could lead to demotivation, and actually, like, these kids would not use your game because it's just not pretty, right? Again, what kind of sounds should our games use? That's the thing which is like kind of the same to this one, because sounds are extremely important. And again, sounds can be produced in many ways. Me as a sound designer, I could talk about this theme like for hours, obviously. But again, sounds should be positive, sounds should be encouraging, sounds should be rewarding, sounds should be something that you want to hear. I remember one specific game which was not really an educational game, but maybe like 10% educational game and 90% just like a storytelling game or something like that. And there were sounds that were created by the sound designer entirely with just their mouths. Okay, so everything in the game was created by the use of like mouth, even the cars or dogs or cats or machines. Everything you heard in this game was used created by just mouth. And it's one of the games me and my daughter remember till these days. Okay, just because of the sounds, we could actually mimic some of the sounds just because it was so specific. Okay, so remember, sound design is always extremely important as well. What kind of characters should you use in our games or your games? Well, this is again a question that is extremely important because the character, the faces, the shapes, is something that the children are going to look at all the time in this game. So you don't want them to look at something that's like more maybe angry or aggressive or like not really pretty or some horror stuff movies, right? That we don't want to use this. Okay, no, we don't want to use this again. Me as a parent, I would probably not want my daughter to play a game that looks bleak or maybe like not nice, even if it was maybe like a good educational game on the level of educational stuff. If it looked and sounded horrible, I would not want to use it, and my daughter would probably not want to use it as well. Remember these things. These face expressions, it's closely tied to these things. I don't have to repeat myself. Repeat myself. And also, I encourage you to think about other questions like this because these are just an examples of questions you could ask yourself before creating any kind of educational game. So think about other questions like this because it will lead you to many other things that should be considered or could be considered and are important in this team. Okay, we could go now to something that's more like again a more pragmatic level of things. Uh, as we are creating a digital game, we should also think about where it's going to be used. Obviously, there are at least two places that we should consider. Obviously, a class in the school and at the home, because these two places are probably the most important. Things to consider, obviously flexibility of use. Again, a question you should ask yourself, is the game only available with internet connection or does it run offline? Because this is really important for some people. What kind of devices can we run the game on? Okay, this is another important question, because when you are creating a digital game like this, you don't want people to be actually not be able to have access to it, because when you create it only for iPhones, for example, many other people are not going to be able to use it. When you create it for only Android devices, again, only one group of people is going to be able to create it. When you are creating the game for the PC, for computers, is the school you are creating the game for actually able to provide these computers? How easy or difficult is to install this game? These are things to be considered. It's extremely important. Again, another question that you could actually ask: can teacher create a lobby or specific classes in the game? Something that it's really really important in some genres of educational games. There should also be a support for teachers and parents. Like these two groups are really really important in the whole process, because you don't use games only as a teacher and the child. There is also parents side of the things, and we should consider whether the game provides a sufficient methodological guides or examples of use, right? The benefits of thinking like this is obviously strengthening cooperation between school and family, and also supporting independent independent learning in children. This is extremely important. If you create a digital game that your child wants to play even out of the school, that's a big win. Okay. Also, there is UDL, something called Universal Design for Learning. Some of the things we already discussed. This means looking for several different paths to the same goal. Like if you are creating a digital game that only have one possible option to solve the problem, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you should probably consider this. Also, this design for universal design for learning talks about the removing barriers in learning and offers flexibility in the form of gathering and using information. This all supports motivation and commitment. Motivation and commitments are, again, two very, very important words in all the processes regarding creating educational games, right? Of course, you could find more on these links. There is a whole article about it, which provides you many, many more details if you want. But the principles are very, very simplified are multiple means of engagement. So you can incorporate many games challenges considering potential barriers. Multiple means of representation, of course, text, audio, video, images, and stuff like that. And multiple means of action and expression. That means multiple ways for students how to express their knowledge, whether it's writing, drawing, or presentations. This last line I would like to kind of repeat, because this is really important. You don't create educational games just to be played and that's it. There should always be considered some kind of outcome from this. Like you really want to engage the students. You want to communicate with them after they played the game. You need to kind of like gather the information they learn. You have to make them to actually talk about it, maybe write about it, something, draw about it, or make a presentation about it. So this is really important stuff. Okay, this is a short, like very generalized and simplified a list of benefits of methodological guides, which is something that you should always consider when creating educational games. Maybe some of you didn't really think about this because it was not like in the guidelines of this project. But benefits of methodological guides are consistency in quality and accessibility, clarity in all the principles, because when you are creating the game, which is kind of more complex, you don't want parents and children and teachers to spend hours just to learn about the game, right? You want to just download the game and start playing it, right? Teachers and parents understand the educational goals of the game, right? If you write things down and parents and teachers can actually read it, they read the same thing, so they understand it on the same level. Methodological guides also provide specific examples of use or exercises, which helps teachers a lot. Also, they enable better integration of the game into the curriculum, which is extremely important, mostly in the process where you actually want to use the game in a official teaching process and on some school. They suggest alternative forms of interaction, because you can use different educational games in a different ways, of course, obviously. They increase the effectiveness of teaching. They promote cooperation between teachers and parents. Again, this is really, really important. They reduce the risk of misuse. Of course, this is extremely important because you want to use the game the right way, not the wrong way. They help developers integrate principles of inclusion and diversity. They promote emotional safety, of course, and they enable testing and feedback from different user groups. This is extremely important because this is something that should not be ignored, right, by any kind of developer that's making educational game, right? You need to gather feedback and you need to be able to test the game in different environments and groups of people and students. And this it's kind of like an end of this presentation. I hope I didn't talk too fast or too too weirdly. I have some final recommendations, and of course, this is a rainbow cat. I kind of generated it with AI. I'm really sorry. uh, some of the takeaways from this presentation. Okay, again, from academic perspective, from the teacher's perspective, and also from the parents' perspective. Always know your target group. This is extremely important because if you know your target group, you already know what your game shouldn't be. Okay, this is something extremely important. Repeat it after me. If you know your target group, you already know that what your game shouldn't be, not should be, but shouldn't be. Okay, inclusion and accessibility should be your milestones. That's extremely important. And let's not be medieval. I just couldn't let myself not write this sentence here. Let's be normal, okay? Keep in mind correct cultural context. This is extremely important. As I said before, we could talk about this a lot. You should also remember that not all students are the same. They are never the same. There is a lot of types of students and children out there. You should also always think about this, and you should also always like think twice before doing some or creating some mechanic in a game. Sometimes it is too easy to forget that if you understand something that maybe there are some other people out there that would probably understand it differently, or maybe they would not understand it at all. Okay, always test the ideas. If you think it will work, it's just the theory until you test it. This is really important, not just in the process of creating educational games, but in general. Always test it. Test something that you just created, because many times in my experience this happened. I thought something is gonna work and it didn't, because it just worked in my head. If something is funny to you, it doesn't mean it's going to work in educational game. This is extremely important. Again, let's not forget that we live in a very different world, and in a very difficult world. Okay, so always think twice before creating something that could actually harm some people or children. Okay, this is really important. And the final notice: these guides are not for fun. They are meant to make you actually think about them before you create any game. So this is like my final thought, which I wanted to put at the end of the presentation. So I guess that's all. Yeah, this is my contact. If you want to write me some beautiful email, you can use this address. And thank you for your patience. I hope you had. I hope you have positive feelings about this presentation, and I hope it was at least a little bit helpful for you. So yeah, go ahead and create some educational games. Bye.